Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our discussion about the dollar code this morning. My name is David West, and I'm going to be your host and moderator today. I'll be watching the chat, so if you have any questions or comments would like to share with our group online today, feel free. In the lower right-hand corner of your Webinar Jam window, you will see the chat box. If by chance you're hearing audio but not seeing video, go ahead and hit the refresh button on your web browser. That will sometimes invoke the video. And we're going to, really just have a bit of a fun chat this morning with Jason Hastie, the author of the Dollar Code. And I'm just going to, before we get started, I'm going to introduce Jason in 2 seconds here. I do want to just put a chat in the little box there for people who may be having difficulty. So just 1 second here. I'm just going to type refresh your browser if you don't see the video. Alrighty, so that's off into chat. And Derek says hello. Welcome, Derek. Thanks for dialing in this morning. Glad to have you online. And so folks, while you're in there, give the chat a try actually, and maybe just put your name in there. Say hello to everybody in the room. And maybe just if you'd like to say where you are located in the world, that would be great. And so let's get started. So Jason Hastie is the author of the Dollar Code. And Jason, you grew up in a small town in Saskatchewan, Canada. You've lived in Scotland, the United States, and Australia. And Jason has a bachelor's degree in commerce, a BCom, a master's degree in professional accounting, an MPAC.
That's right, yes.
And Jason's also a chartered professional accountant, CPA, CA, and that's really how I came to know Jason so many years ago, actually probably about 12 years ago, while we were out business networking in the community here. And Jason and I became pretty good friends over the years. And Jason's favorite genre of music is country music, and Jason is a country music recording artist, actually. And Jason, you've had some top songs on iTunes in Canada.
Yes, yeah, we've had we've had 3 top 50 hits in Canada, and our latest album, which we just released October 9th, went #2 on iTunes for Canadian country downloads.
Fabulous. Well, thank you. And Jason, I'm glad that you're here today to talk to myself and the people online about the book that you wrote, The Dollar Code. And so I'm going to turn the mouse over to you, Jason, give you the floor. And why don't you tell us a little bit about the Dollar Code and where it came from and why is it here and how is it going to help me?
Well, the Dollar Code, the idea for it actually came when I was living in Scotland, and every day from when I went home from work, I would actually walk home from work as they do in Europe, and I would stop by a grocery store. So I knew how much I could spend every day on groceries for that day and for the next day. And that's kind of where the budgeting idea came from, because I was a backpacker, I was working, and I was on a very, very fixed budget. And then I moved back to Canada. I went to university, I got my chartered accountant designation, and moved to Calgary and started helping out people. I'd started consulting practice and filing tax returns and doing small business accounting. And a lot of my clients started asking me budgeting questions, helping them with their budgets. So I pulled back into my file and the system that I'd come up with in Scotland and started helping out people with budgeting. And I really wanted to make it a simple thing. And that was the biggest thing that I'd found, is that people were very confused by budgets. So I helped out my sister and it worked on her. And then I started out helping out a lot of clients. Then I had a good friend convince me to write a book. And so I did just that, and I published it myself. It was called The Dollar Code. And as you can see, that picture on the left, that was the book cover that we had come up with. And then shortly after that, somehow it gained the attention of the Chicken Soup for the Soul publishers in the United States. And they wanted to publish my book along with 5 other copies later on. So basically it transitioned from my own unpublished version to the published version of the Dollar Code, which we've been selling now since March. All right, so let's get into it. There is something that we deal with every day of our lives, and that is money. So basically, we spend money every day of our lives, or most days anyway. And what that spending can lead to is it can lead to two different things. It can lead to debt if we spend too much money, or if we spend more money than we bring in. If we spend less money than we bring in, we actually end up with savings. So everything that revolves around money and how to manage that money, I call the B word, which of course is budgeting.
Right.
Now, on the back of my book, I have a list of questions, and these are kind of the questions that I have faced from people that I've helped out over the years. And I think you may find yourself in the same situation. So questions such as, why can't I get out of debt? Where does my money go? Why is there never enough money at the end of the month? Which leads into the whole, why am I living paycheck to paycheck? And that seems to be a problem with so many people, and it doesn't matter how much money you make. I've counseled people who are very wealthy and make very, very good money, and they still tend to lead paycheck to paycheck.
Well, isn't it that when your wages go up, then your spending tends to go up comparable to your wages sometimes, doesn't it?
Definitely. And it's the psychology of money that, it's tough to figure out, but it does seem the more we make, the more we spend.
And there's a lot of people derive a lot of pleasure out of spending money too, don't they?
Well, definitely. I mean, it's fun to spend money, and we're faced with so many different things, commercials on TV, different promotions that we're faced with. And it's always about getting it down to a monthly payment, trying to get it to seem like it's not as big of an expense from the suppliers or the people that we buy products from.
Right.
A couple other questions, how will I support my family? My wife and I have a 2-year-old daughter, and that becomes even more important when you have another family member and somebody else that depends on you. And finally, how will I save for my future or retirement? And how will I become financially free? Because truthfully, once you hit that point of freedom and you have savings in the bank, your stress level is reduced tremendously. And really, that's a huge part of why I do what I do, is to help people get out of debt and to be able to save for the future. All right. Well, asking those questions, you are definitely not alone. Newspaper articles that I have pulled, these are just a few of them. Consumer debt ratio inches up. We live in one of the most, I don't know, I guess you'd say probably the provinces where people have the most money, and still Albertans' debt climbs. We've seen this, I think this article I'd pulled actually before our current recession. So even pre-recession, people's debt was climbing in Alberta. And finally, household debt hits new record, which is definitely not new news. Our friends down south in the United States, we've heard about the debt problems that people have had down there. And sure enough, it's hitting us in Canada as well and around the world. So why do we have trouble budgeting? Why, we understand that we make money, we understand that we spend money, but why do we have so much trouble budgeting and handling our money? Well, first of all, it is just too complicated. I've had so many clients say to me, it's too complicated to set up a budget in the beginning. So if you can't even get started, how can you actually implement something? Nowadays, even more than ever, it is too easy to spend. We have our credit cards, we've got debit cards, and just so many different ways of spending money so easily. And it's becoming easier and easier. Now we have tap to pay. We've got Apple Pay where we pay on our phones. I was in 7-Eleven actually just a couple of weeks ago, and I did the tap to pay. And true story, I walked out of 7-Eleven after I had bought my groceries or whatever I'd purchased, and I tapped to pay, and I walked out and I was thinking, how much did I actually spend? Which was crazy because it's right there in front of you, but it's so easy just to tap your card and pay it.
Right, because it's not physical money anymore. It's just credits, really.
That's right. Exactly. We've kind of lost that connection that we have with cash.
My grandmother years ago said that when we went to a cashless society, it was a sign that Armageddon was pending. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely in some ways, for sure, and it has increased amount of bankruptcies and just losing that connection with cash. Because when we have cash in our pockets, that's something tangible. We have, so much cash, and as we spend it, that cash leaves our pockets and we're left with nothing. So it's a very tangible thing. We can see it. But when we're spending on our credit card or even our debit cards, we lose that connection with cash and how much we are truthfully spending.
Well, there's a phenomenal documentary on Netflix, and I apologize, I can't remember what it's called, but it addresses sort of the use of credit and how the use of credit from an early age, like right from entry into university, there are credit card companies in the U.S. universities giving out credit cards with a credit limit. No requirement that you have an income to apply.
Yes.
And it's literally leading to some students graduating with so much debt that they're committing suicide.
Exactly. And, I mean, when I went to university, that was the day one. When you go through those university doors, you see banks set up on tables with credit cards that they're offering. And what they offered us was credit cards with pictures on the front that had, your favorite sports team. So they make them very appealing, and they give you credit limits to start with. When my sister actually got her first credit card, I remember her coming to me and saying, "Wow, this is cool. I've got $500 I can spend." And I said to her, "Well, that's actually not your money, that you will have to pay that back." So already, at such an early age, it begins. Now, I was doing a radio talk show a couple of months ago, and they were saying, should we give our kids credit cards? And you know what? I actually think that you should, but you should teach them about credit cards and how to use those credit cards, because it can get out of control very, very quickly.
Absolutely.
So another reason that we have trouble budgeting is really we are just too busy. And, the time it takes to plan and set up your budget is one thing, but then it is also tough to stick to, because it's just another thing that we have to add to our plates, another thing that we have to think about, another thing that we have to do. And that's when it just becomes, too complex and a reason why people don't actually do it.
Right.
So the principles behind the dollar code, as I said, I really wanted to make it easy. And the easiest way that I could do it was to make it only about one number. And I will explain that a little bit later. And we're going to talk about why it's just one number. So the whole principle behind the one number was that it will take away from any confusion or complexity. You just have one number that you have to remember. That's it. And I compare it to a diet. When we go on a diet, we're not told to eat 45,000 calories a month. We're told to eat 1,500 calories a day. If we had to try and diet by the month and track 45,000 calories, I mean, diets are tough enough as they are. It would be much more complex and way too complicated to do that. So why do we do that on a budgeting basis? Anytime you talk about budgeting, it's always on a monthly basis. So the other reason for one number is it is easy to stick to and remember. And really, that is because it is the same number that you use every day. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later. But that is, again, the principle of the dollar code is giving you that one number that you calculate, and you use that same number every day. So now, how can the dollar code help you? Well, really, it helps you understand your finances. I have a friend who used to work for a big marketing company, and they learned that you can only control what you understand. So if you don't understand your finances in the beginning, if you don't understand budgeting and where your money is going, how can you learn to control it? Secondly, understanding your spending habits. And that really, really is a huge part of it. Many of us, getting away from the cash especially, don't really understand how we're spending money, why we're spending money, and where we're spending money. And, attaching a value to the things that you buy. again, getting away from cash, you don't have that value. You don't understand how much a cup of coffee costs you. You don't understand how much these different items that you purchase actually cost and how they factor into the bigger picture. And really, awareness of your spending. I told that 7-Eleven story, and I had no awareness of how much I was spending because I tapped to pay, had no idea. So really, the dollar code gives you back that awareness of your spending. And in doing so, it gives you back control because you are understanding it. So as part of the dollar code, I have what you call the daily allowance, and that is what factors into the one number. And I ask people all the time, did you receive an allowance when you were a kid? And most of us did. Usually it was a weekly allowance, and almost always it was paid in cash. Again, getting back to the cash thing. So with the dollar code, we actually take it one step further. Instead of making it a weekly thing, we make it a daily thing. And it's that one number that you remember every day. And with that, it actually becomes a habit because you have that one number in your mind to go by, and that's your reference. So talking about the whole dollar code thing, why don't we do an example to make it a little bit clearer to people? And this is not necessarily just the dollar code, but it's an example of setting up a budget yourself. Mm-hmm. So this morning we've got Kelly, and Kelly makes $3,000 per month. Now this $3,000 is after any tax deductions, any different deductions from Kelly's paycheck. So $3,000 a month, it seems like a pretty, big amount to be making, and a lot of things that you can, buy and spend with that $3,000. So let's go into Kelly's expenses. First off, Kelly has rent that's $1,200 per month. And then, he drives a nice car. So he spends $700 per month. He got into one of those, only $700 per month spending plans. As most of us do these days, we have cell phones, and smartphones are probably the norm now. So $150 cell phone bill per month. And then you've got your utilities, you've got your cable TV and your internet and your gym membership. So Kelly makes $3,000 a month. These are just a few of his major expenses. When you add all these up and factor it into the dollar code, Kelly's daily allowance is only $16. So out of that $3,000, his daily amount is only $16. And when I go through this same exercise with my clients, that is probably the biggest eye-awakening thing to them, is that, wow, this large amount translates into a very small daily amount. But what that daily amount does is it really brings in the awareness and the value. And if you think of that $16 that Kelly has, that is about the cost of 3 Starbucks lattes. So that's, again, where you attach that value to that amount. And as part of the dollar code, I say, I tell people all the time, I say, you may need that Starbucks latte to get you through the day. And that is your, not prize, but your reward to get through the day. Don't feel guilty about it, because as Kelly has in this example, he has $16 a day to spend, and that $16 he can spend on whatever he wants to. So really, it's guilt-free spending. All right, so I've talked a lot about what the dollar code does, but what are some things that you can actually do right now that you can start today to really help you with your budgeting? Well, I've created what I call the 2-week transformation. And to develop a habit, good or bad, studies have shown that it takes between 2 and 6 weeks to develop that habit. So I say, give yourself 2 weeks to start off budgeting and creating this new habit. And here are some tricks and some tips that you can do. So what this will do, it'll actually help you become aware of your spending again. And that's, like I talked about, without the cash, we lose that awareness of our spending. So I say lock up your credit cards. Lock up your credit cards, your debit cards, and go to cash only for these first 2 weeks. What that will do is that, again, will show you how much you're actually spending and how quickly the cash leaves your wallet or your purse. A second thing that I say is write down what you spend. Dieting statistics have shown that people are more successful even if they don't diet, even if they just write down what they eat. they are more successful with losing weight, because again, it's that awareness.
Even just weighing yourself every day, right?
Exactly.
Same analogy. If you like, you spend the last 6 months losing 30, 40 pounds, if you don't weigh yourself every day, 3 months later, it could very well be around your waist again.
Exactly. And it comes back quicker than you think. Exactly. Yeah. Another thing that I say is curb your commitments. And in doing this, what I say to do is you take 3 of your monthly plans. We all have monthly plans, like say it's our cell phone plan, our cable TV plan, our internet plan, any kind of utilities. I say take 3 of those and call each of your service providers. So this is in your 2-week transformation, remember, and do this as soon as possible. What I do is every quarter, so every spring, summer, fall, and winter, I call my cell phone provider and I say, look at my spending habits and what I'm spending money on over the last 90 days, over the last quarter. How can you help me save money? And oftentimes they can add additional minutes to your plan, additional data. They can either decrease your spending or they can put you in a plan so you're not going over. And that can save you a lot of money. Same thing with my cable TV bill. I call them every quarter, and very often they have a promotion on higher speed internet for a lower cost, those kind of things.
Or bundling.
Exactly. The next thing, bundling services. Yeah. If you bundle through the same service provider for your cable TV and internet, sometimes you can save money there. And another thing to curb your commitment is eliminating your monthly subscriptions. So many things are monthly nowadays, and especially with a credit card, you sign up for a monthly payment. I had an electronic magazine subscription that I'd signed up for because I thought, oh, this is great. It cost me $10 a month, and then I can view as many magazines as I want to, and I'm not spending $4 per magazine. Well, it turns out I actually didn't even really use that electronic service. And so I looked back at my credit card bill and I thought, oh, that's right. I'm paying this monthly fee that has gone on for 4 months and I hadn't even used the service.
I really do think that things like software as a service, in-app payments, the ease of renting and streaming, all these things that are coming to us in our fingertips on our smartphones, devices, our computers, I think it's going to be really painful for a lot of people because it is so easy to commit to a new subscription for something. And then later, like you said, 3 months in, you're thinking, geez, I forgot totally I even had it.
Exactly. Yeah. And, and they add up, that $2.99 a month, $3.99 a month, $10.99 a month, they all seem like such small amounts. And that's where the companies really try to get you, because they say, oh, it's just a small monthly amount, but they all add up. Another thing that I want you to do in your 2-week transformation, sell it. So if you have items around your house that you do not need, I say pick 5 of them in this next 2 weeks and advertise them on Craigslist or Kijiji, or, your community may have an online service. Even Facebook has groups where you can sell items. I do this all of the time with things that I don't need. And it is incredible the amount of money that you can get for something that you don't even use. And then this is actually just bonus cash to you. So why not? If you're not using it, it's taking up space. I do accounting for some companies that rent storage space because they don't have enough space. And in that storage space, so many items that are never used.
Right.
So they're spending more money storing stuff that they never even use.
I'm sure I could fill my driveway with stuff that we've acquired over the years, Jason, that is literally on a shelf or under a blanket somewhere that we're not using today. So
exactly. And it really is so easy. You can do it on your smartphone.
So you volunteer to come over and help, is what you're saying?
I volunteer you to come over and help. All right. The final thing that I say for your 2-week transformation is what I call a fun bucket. Create a fun bucket. So David has done this himself. He has a pail that he uses for his fun bucket. I say, make it a pail, make it a hat, a box, a bowl, whatever, something that you can store cash in. And then I say the second thing is to make it visible. Put it in a visible spot so that you know that that fun bucket is there. And the point of the fun bucket is savings that you can accumulate. And remember, this is in your 2-week transformation, but you can continue to do this well beyond that. For this fun bucket, I say commit to putting in a set amount each day, whether it be $2, $5, $10. Commit yourself to putting in that same amount into the fun bucket each day for the whole 2 weeks. And as part of that, we end up with change in our pockets at the end of the day. In Canada, our change can really add up because we've got loonies and toonies, which are $1 and $2 coins, and they really, really tend to add up. So I say empty your pockets at the end of each day and put all of your loose change in the fun bucket. Next, these items that you have sold that I said to sell on Craigslist or Kijiji, any of these items that you've sold, take the earnings from those things and put that into the fun bucket.
So that's your bonus money?
Exactly. That bonus. That's right. Exactly. And one thing I didn't mention there is price those things to sell. Price them low that people are going to, respond to it quickly, because again, it's another psychological thing. As soon as you see people starting to come to your place to buy these things, it's like, wow, there's this extra money there.
Right.
And as I talk about in the dollar code in my book, all this extra cash adds to your daily allowance.
Right.
So if your daily allowance is $16 like Kelly, and you go and sell a $20 item, well, your daily allowance for that day is $36. So it jumps very, very quickly. And that's why I encourage people to sell things, especially if you're not using them. So at the end of this 2 weeks with your fun bucket, I say reward yourself. Now take all of that cash and spend it in whatever manner you want to. This is your guilt-free spending. And what is better than spending money guilt-free? Because you've saved up for this. And really, there's nothing better than that. There's a few, other tips that I give in the book about guilt-free spending and how good savings can be, whether it be saving for a vacation with your family, whether it's saving up for car repairs. Then you're not hit with all these unexpected expenses. And when they do actually happen, because they will, it's not stressful. And that's the biggest thing in planning and having a budget that is easy to manage and easy to stick to, is reducing that stress.
So Jason, Derek actually has a question. Derek's asking, is the dollar code book good to use, or is buying the app better, which would offer more interactive options? So maybe you could just speak to how the book and the app work together, or
Sure, definitely. So we do have an app on the Apple Store and on the Google Store that goes hand in hand with the book. And the app is great because what it does, every time you spend money, every time you spend something, you can record it in the app, so that if your daily allowance is 16, you go to 7-Eleven, spend $3, you enter that into the app, and now your remaining amount for that day is 13. So it helps track it very, very easily. And the app is great. I mean, it's perfect because so many of us have our smartphones on us all the time.
It's kind of like a calorie counter for
Exactly.
someone losing weight, or
That's right.
weight management tool. For dollars.
Same principle. Where the book comes in is really the book teaches you the whole system, and helps you understand the principles and gives you a lot of tips and tricks to use beyond what obviously the app can do.
And the book speaks to philosophies and theories around budgets and personal behavior, does it not?
Definitely, yeah. The book is, it's a great starting point.
Right.
I always tell people, start with the book, read it, and it is a very simple read. It's like 100 pages. You can read it in a day. So again, it's nothing that's too complex or too big of a task to take on. You can read it in a day. So thanks for that question, by the way, Derek. In doing all of these little things, even this 2-week transformation, they all add up, and these small changes make a big impact. And really what I say is consistency is the key. It's getting back to that same psychology of money. the more we make, the more we spend. Well, here, the more we save, it actually has a very positive influence on the way that you think, because you start saving money and then you don't feel like you're always trying to catch up. It's actually the psychology of feeling good about yourself. And when you plan that vacation, you go and take that vacation, and you've already saved up for it. So it's not money that's coming out of your pocket because you've already prepared for it. So all of these small changes can make a big impact. And what I challenge you to do is start now. I say, this weekend, plan it. Get your plan in motion. Monday is a great day. Monday, start it. The 2-week transformation isn't anything that's too onerous or too big to take on. Super simple way to start. And I think there's nothing better than planning a Monday to start it. So more about the dollar code. Where can you find the dollar code? Where can you find the book? Well, it's available in bookstores across the United States and Canada. I believe it is in all airports in the United States as well. So very readily available. You can also get it online through Amazon. And if you go to our website, thedollarcode.com, there's places there that you can click on to go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Very readily available. It is also available in electronic format if you prefer. I still myself like the book. I like having that tangible thing. I guess it's like cash to me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And last but not least, I say keep in touch. Really, we'd love to hear from you, everybody on our team that works helping people out. I'd love to hear what you thought of this webinar, any kind of suggestions that you have for future webinars, and any other questions that you would like answered.
So I have a couple quick points, Jason, just to sort of cap things out. These are things that you made me think about while you were chatting, and thank you so much for sharing the dollar code with us and that. But how does the dollar code work with couples?
Couples, yeah, actually, that's a very good question. And, the last point that I just put on the slide, I want to hear your success stories. Just this week, actually, I had a lady write into me saying that she and her husband started the dollar code in July. Mm-hmm. And already they've been able to make big purchases. They still go out once a week to eat out because that's something that they really enjoy. And it has really changed their lives. And it has actually brought them closer together because now they're both involved in the finances.
Right.
She said she wasn't that involved before. It was her husband, but now she has a role in her finances, and it's so easy to follow and to understand that she can do that. So with couples, it depends on how I talk about it in the book, depends on how your bank accounts are set up. So, oftentimes couples nowadays have completely separate bank accounts and they deal with their budgets separately. So in that sense, each of you can have your own daily allowance and calculate it separately. If you have a bank account that, if all of your finances are intertwined, what you can do is you can just calculate your daily allowance and split it into two.
Right.
So, there are multiple different ways that you can do it. With the app as well, you can have one login and share the login too. And we will be making improvements into the app as well to further enhance it and make it even easier. But yeah, great question for couples.
And this concept of selling things, I think, is quite brilliant, actually, even though, sometimes we do this just organically, but as part of an actual budget plan. I could just, when you were talking about that, I immediately started thinking to myself, geez, if you start actually selling stuff that you're not using, what a great foundational learning experience, and the things you shouldn't be buying in the first place.
Exactly. I mean, it's so easy to buy something, and impulse buying is a big thing, right? But again, if you have that daily allowance, if you have that one number in your head and you're at Walmart or wherever and you want to buy something, you have that impulse buy, and your daily allowance is 16 and that's 20, well, right there, you've gone over your daily allowance. So you know that you either have to save up or it's impacting your future buying and you're going into debt by spending that extra money.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jason, for sharing the dollar code with us. And you're a busy guy for doing this webinar so that we can get the word out to more people about the dollar code. And as Jason just intimated, the dollar code is available online. And probably the easiest thing for you to do is just pop over to thedollarcode.com, and all of the resources to purchase the dollar code and links out to the apps are there. So visit thedollarcode.com. If you have any questions, there's a feedback form on thedollarcode.com. Feel free to shoot Jason a note. I know Jason is pretty passionate about this topic and helping people with their personal finances, has lots of great experience working with people one-to-one. And so if you have any questions for Jason, please feel free to submit a question to him from thedollarcode.com, and I'm confident that you'll get nothing but great value back. So Jason, thanks very much for today, and we'll conclude.
Yeah, and again, I look forward to hearing everybody's feedback and success stories as well. I love hearing the success stories, and and even if it's not the dollar code, even if it's your budgeting system, what it's done for people. And that's my ultimate goal, is really to help people, help to alleviate that stress. So thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Is there a Facebook page?
There is, the dollar code.
Pop over to Facebook, folks, if you enjoyed today's webinar, and if you want to learn more about the evolution of the dollar code, go over to Facebook, like the page, and it is mid-Saturday. Please enjoy your weekend and be safe. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.